The station floated in silence above a dead star-cold, elegant, and polished like a jewel carved from frozen steel. It was called Trinaxis Prime, a neutral ground where war was not allowed. It was designed for peace talks, built by the old galactic alliances long before Earth ever joined the interstellar map. Inside the main chamber, a glass table stretched across the room like a mirror of power. It reflected the soft blue lights, the quiet hum of the gravity field, and the faces of two very different species. On one side sat Ambassador Thorn, Earth's most seasoned diplomat, dressed in a black suit with silver cuffs, his face unreadable, calm to calm. On the other side were the Velkar Dominion, 7 tall figures with golden skin and eyes like molten iron, draped in ceremonial robes and armor, polished for the cameras. The room was filled with fake smiles and hollow words, broadcast live across 5 star systems. The opening speech was elegant, full of promises. The Velkar praised the strength of diplomacy, the future of trade, the beauty of peace. Thorn listened. He nodded. He let them speak. He let them lie. Then his device buzzed. He didn't look surprised. He didn't move quickly. He simply reached down, touched the small, embedded screen inside his wrist, and watched. Only he could see the message. Just 2 lines of text glowing red. Aurelia 9 is lost. Confirmed orbital strike. 2 million dead. Svelkar signature weapons. For a moment, the world seemed to freeze around him. The Velkar High Envoy continued speaking about harmony, about interspecies cooperation, about the importance of forgiveness. But Thorn wasn't listening anymore. His fingers slowly closed the case beside him. The Earth team behind him, 2 military liaisons, and a translator shifted in their seats. They knew that look. The comm was over. The game was finished. Ambassador Thorn stood up without a word. The cameras turned toward him, confused. The Velkar High Envoy raised an eyebrow. Ambassador, is something wrong? Thorn looked at him for a long moment, his face still smooth, his voice flat as glass. Enough. No more civility. The words cut through the room like a silent explosion. There were no raised voices, no shouts, no threats, just a tone that chilled the room. The translator flinched. The military liaisons stood instantly. The cameras kept rolling. The galactic news feeds broadcasted in real-time Earth's lead. Ambassador walking away from a peace table in silence, eyes hard, hands steady. The Velkar representative stood in confusion. Ambassador, this is highly irregular. But Thorn had already pressed the small button beneath the table. They didn't see it. They didn't feel it. Until 3 seconds later, when the air changed in the rooms reserved for the Velkar delegation. Private. Lounges. Secured transport bays. Personal rest chambers. The oxygen began to drain silently. It wasn't an attack. It wasn't an explosion. It was a signal disruption. Quiet, targeted, built into the very design of Trinaxis Prime by Earth engineers years ago. In case diplomacy ever turned to betrayal, Thorn and his team walked through the central corridor, past stunned guards and reporters toward their stealth shuttle. No one stopped them. No one understood what was happening. Not yet. But the Earth shuttle launched within minutes, silent and smooth, vanishing into warp space. Inside the shuttle, Thorn sat down, removed his device, and recorded a message to Earth's High Council. This is Thorn. Really is confirmed. Lost. Velkar lied. Peace is over. Recommend full activation of Protocol Revenant. Prepare for immediate ghost warfare. I have disabled Velkar life support on Trinaxis Prime. If they survive, let them crawl. Handed the message. Sent it. And closed his eyes. The galaxy would burn for this. Not because Earth wanted war, but because Earth had been patient. For far too long, 2 hours later, across the Velkar Empire, news reports exploded. Earth walks out of peace talks. Aurelia massacre confirmed. Human diplomat activates silent retaliation. Panic swept through merchant systems. Allies of Velkar began erasing old contracts. Border patrols tightened. The galactic markets crashed in under 4 hours. Svelkar leaders still choking on half-empty air tanks in Trinaxis Prime finally understood what had just happened. Not a declaration of war, but a declaration of contempt. Earth wasn't negotiating anymore. Earth wasn't interested in handshakes, councils, or elegant threats. They weren't. Shouting, they were done. And when Earth went silent, the galaxy trembled because silence from Earth meant only one thing. Something terrifying was about to be unleashed. The civil mask of humanity had cracked. And now, the monsters they kept buried, the machines, the codes, the deep weapons were stirring beneath the surface, waiting, watching, and remembering every lie told across that glass table. The stars outside the shuttle window looked still, but inside the human ship, everything was moving fast. Ambassador Thorne sat alone near the observation glass, his suit collar stained slightly with sweat, though his face remained cold as iron. The quiet hum of the engines did little to calm the storm now rising behind his eyes. His fingers tapped gently on the seat's metal arm tap. Tap-taps encrypted messages poured into the shuttle's private feed. Earth's high command had already received his transmission. The reply was short, no ceremony, delay. Just one blinking green light across the screen and 2 words, Protocol Revenant, activated. The human liaisons behind Thorne didn't speak. They didn't have to. They'd trained for this day in silence, in simulations that Earth's own leaders swore would never be needed. But that lie had died the moment Velkar struck Aurelia 9, the moment 2 million civilians were turned to ash while diplomats smiled. Over drinks, Earth had shown restraint for decades, sent envoys instead of weapons, shared medicines instead of conquest, built peace stations, not dreadnoughts. But now, the final layer of diplomacy had burned away. Earth's true face, the one it hid under treaties, promises, was finally awake. As the shuttle sped past the edges of Trinaxis space, a high-security beacon lit up red on Thorne's wrist. He tapped it once, and the screen revealed an old code one he hadn't seen since his academy days. The gray key. His breath slowed. Earth hadn't just launched its counter-network. They were releasing something darker. AI war ghosts from the deep cores. Protocols designed for psychological warfare, subspace hacking, and silent sabotage. These weren't ships. These were phantoms. Self-replicating code entities that could hide inside enemy systems and tear them apart from within without ever being seen. Meanwhile, behind him, one of the junior officers turned pale. Her name was Ellen, fresh from Earth's diplomatic corps, too young to remember the last real war. "Sir," she whispered, glancing at the data storm rising across her screen, "we've already entered 3 Velkar grid zones, are ghosting every signal. Even their emergency comes, are blacking out." Thorne didn't turn. He just stared at the stars. "Good," he said quietly. "Let them choke in silence." Back on Trinaxis Prime, chaos erupted. The Velkar delegation stumbled through the halls, gasping for breath as oxygen levels dropped. Their guards fought each other for helmets. Fire suppression systems kicked in even though there was no fire. Lights blinked madly. Doors locked and unlocked at random. One minister screamed as he found his personal transport pod had been ejected into space on its own before he even entered. The station AI was no longer answering Velkar commands. Every command line now responded with one chilling sentence. Diplomatic protocol expired. Humanity has logged out. Velkar War Command scrambled. Ships launched from nearby moons, trying to chase the Earth shuttle, but it was gone. Earth's warp tech was 1 generation ahead, silent, unpredictable, and impossible to track. Dominion's capital planet, military advisors, shouted over one another in the Grand Throne Chamber, "We must respond at once. Launch tactical retaliation. Crush the humans before they gather their strength." But the Emperor Tall, crowned in black gold armor, did not move. His eyes stared at the live feed from Aurelia 9. Bodies, smoke, ash. Satellite footage clearly showed Velkar weapons in orbit. There was no denying it now. Earth had proof, and worse, Earth had patience. "Do you understand what we've done?" The Emperor whispered finally, voice shaking with something no one had heard from him in years. Fear. The room fell silent. Earth didn't declare war, he said. They simply walked away. And in that silence, every Velker officer began to understand. A nation that walks away without shouting isn't retreating, it's preparing. Back in Earth's bastion, Kordib, beneath the Greenland ice sheet's giant, screens lit up with real-time updates. Dozens of red lights blinked across the galactic map, each one a Velkar supply line, each one now under silent attack. Earth hadn't fired missiles. It hadn't sent a fleet. But still, factories shut down. Satellites vanished. Communication relays fried themselves from inside out. Ava Dorn, director of Earth's Interstellar Defense Division, stepped into the war room and faced the council. Her tone was calm, but her message was clear. We offered peace. Us fire. Now, we give them silence. The kind that eats empires. She turned to her command staff. Deploy the Ghost Spires to Sector 9. Begin cultural fractures. Break their language banks. Interrupt religious transmissions. Make their people lose trust in the throne, then freeze their ships mid-space. A general raised an eyebrow. Want to make them fall from the inside? Ava stared straight ahead. We want them to remember what happens when Earth stops being polite. Ambassador Thorne arrived back on Earth, not as a hero, not as a politician, but as a messenger of what had come. And he didn't rest. He walked straight to the mirror chamber, a place hidden beneath Bastion, where Earth's oldest war AI slept, surrounded by black, glass, and ancient commands. He stood before the activation core and spoke the phrase only 3 humans were allowed to know. Let memory become weapon. The room shook. The AI's single red eye opened. The war that Velkar thought would be fought with guns was now going to be fought with every mistake they'd ever made. The Velkar Dominion had faced war before, brutal campaigns against insectoid swarms, civil unrest in the outer rings, even pirate sieges that bled the treasury dry, but nothing prepared them for this. Not because Earth attacked with overwhelming firepower, not because they dropped antimatter bombs, but because Earth stayed silent. Too silent. Days had passed since Ambassador Thorne walked out of the peace table on Trinaxis Prime, and in that time no demands came from Earth. No fleet entered Velker space. There was no grand broadcast, no declaration of war, just silence. And then it came a signal, short and cold, bursting across all Velkar systems at the exact same time. It wasn't spoken, wasn't even in a language. Just a line of number 6 digits, speeding endlessly across every frequency. Ships picked it up. Spaceports picked it up. Civilian comms, military channels, even private devices buzzed with it. The code played on loop. 0 hours, 5 minutes, and 57 seconds. Then it ticked down. 0 hours, 5 minutes, and 56 seconds. Then 0 hours, 5 minutes, and 55 seconds. It was a countdown. But to what? Panic spread. Fast. In the Grand Throne Hall, advisors scrambled to decipher the numbers. Encryption teams tried to reverse engineer the source. Was it a bomb? Was it a virus? The High Council suggested it was a bluff. It's psychological warfare, one commander shouted. Ignore it. But even as he spoke, reports arrived. From mining stations, power outages in systems untouched by war, data collapse. Star maps going dark. Velkar scouts reported losing orientation and deep space navigation corrupted. Black holes mislabeled, entire systems wiped from memory banks. On 3 colonies, the artificial weather grid failed. Canes spun uncontrollably. Children couldn't breathe. Hospitals shut down. And still the countdown continued. 0 hours, 4 minutes, and 32 seconds. 0 hours, 3 minutes, and 59 seconds. The Velkar scrambled to jam the signal, but it wasn't coming from a ship. It wasn't coming from a station or a satellite. It was coming from inside their own systems. Embedded years ago, hidden in their tech, waiting back on Earth. In the hidden facility beneath the Arctic ice, Director Ava Dorn stood before a wall of holograms. Each countdown ticked in sync across alien systems, and every time a number fell, another Velker structure blinked off the grid. The room was silent. This wasn't war. This was surgery. Controlled, cold. Earth wasn't just punishing. Velkar It was proving something to the entire galaxy that civility was Earth's mask, and it had been dropped forever. Behind Ava, a war technician whispered, "They're trying to trace the origin." Ava smiled. "Let them. The origin is inside. Them, we've been in their blood for years." When Velkar scientists dug deeper, they found the truth, and it terrified them. The signal's structure matched a forgotten Earth AI protocol, Ragnar Sequence 3, Ghost Code. Earth had once offered Velkar to improve star mapping efficiency during early peace trade decades ago. Velkar had accepted it, installed it, across every ship, every colony, every command station. And now it had turned against them. What they thought was helpful Earth tech was actually a sleeper seed, quiet, patient, built to awaken on command. No virus, no need for brute force, just one command word, sent from Earth, and everything started unraveling. 00207, in orbit. Above the Velkar colony, Kraxus 6, fleet captain watched helplessly as his dreadnought's targeting system spun out of control. Screens flickered, and then everything turned black. The dreadnought drifted, powerless, while small human stealth drones previously invisible dud-cloaked around it like shadows from a nightmare. But they didn't fire. They just circled, scanning the dead ship as if to say, "We could have ended you, but we didn't. Not yet." The dreadnought captain fell to his knees in silence. Elsewhere, on the twin moons of the Velkar capital, civil protests erupted. Citizens demanded answers. How did Earth get so deep into their systems? How did the Empire's mighty tech fall apart so fast? And more importantly, why hadn't the Empire noticed? But the truth was obvious now. Earth had never trusted them. Even during the peace years, Earth had smiled with one hand while programming their downfall with the other. And the Dominion, arrogant in its power, never questioned the gifts. Back in Bashancore, Ambassador Thorne watched the countdown on the central screen. 0 hours, 1 minute, and 12 seconds. He turned to the new human recruits behind him, fresh soldiers. Barely 20 years old, all eyes locked on the digital map where Velkar systems blinked red. "You've been taught to believe war is fire," he said calmly. "True war is memory. It's betrayal. It's the moment your enemy realizes you were always 10 moves ahead." The recruits nodded, not with excitement, but with quiet understanding. Earth was not angry. Earth was calculating. And now, Earth was finishing the equation. Back in Velkar space, the countdown reached its final minute. Emergency transmissions begged Earth to talk. The Emperor himself sent a personal message. This was a mistake. Let's return to peace. We can fix this. But no reply came. Earth had gone deaf. The message they'd received had been written. In fire, the ashes of Aurelian 9 Earth didn't answer fire with words. Then it hit 0. 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 0 seconds. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then, across 5 sectors, complete system collapse. Banking networks failed. Orbital shields powered down. Gravity stabilizers reversed entire. Cities drifted into the sky. Civilian crafts lost altitude and crashed. The throne world's space. Elevator shattered, raining metal on millions. No gun was fired. No invasion took place. And yet the Dominion screamed. Because now the galaxy understood. Earth wasn't negotiating anymore. Earth had become something else. Something terrifying. On the green farmlands of New Arizona, where peaceful harvest drones once hovered gently over wheat fields, there now stood children in armor, scanning the skies. One held a plasma rifle twice her size. Another tapped commands into a wrist pad, eyes sharp and unafraid. Behind them, rows of solar panels weren't just feeding crops. They were secretly powering defense grids strong enough to vaporize orbiting ships. A generation ago, this place had been Earth's pride, peaceful, free, full of poetry and hope. But now, the innocence was gone, burned away the moment Aurelianine fell. Now, every civilian on Earth and its colonies had become something new, were trained. Alert, merciless if provoked. Across the outer ring colonies, no one waited for governments to respond. Grandparents built EMP mines from scrap. Teachers drilled evacuation protocols into math lessons. Mechanics trained in zero-gravity weapon repair. Civilians didn't panic when Velkar's power collapsed. They prepared. Because Earth had seen this coming. They'd hoped for peace, but they had prepared for extinction. In an old-school turn bunker on Luna 3, former musicians ran a command. Relay transmitting coded signals across deep space, using sound waves that Velkar systems couldn't decode. The man in charge used to conduct orchestras. Now he conducted war songs written in data near the equator on Earth, in the ruins of old Singapore. Farmers plowed fields by day and trained with stealth cloaks by night. One farmer, a 70-year-old named Kalen Duro, had once refused even to kill insects. But now he sat quietly under the stars, cleaning a plasma blade he had used to ambush a Velkar scout team last week. They thought we'd be soft, he told his grandson. We let them think that for decades. It was easier that way. The boy asked, Are we soldiers now? Kalen looked at him and replied, No, we're Earth. That's something stronger. Meanwhile, aboard a silent orbital platform hidden in Earth's shadow, a small team of engineers completed GhostNet 9, a live cyber weapon designed to turn any alien broadcast into Earth propaganda in less than 6 seconds. One of them, a former pastry chef from Florence, smiled as she finished linking the weapon to Earth's deep space satellites. They never expected us to fight with chefs and farmers, she laughed. That's why we'll win. The others nodded. This was the new Earth, not made of military elites or ruling warlords, but of united civilians who had been taught peace, but learned to master war. The Velkar still didn't understand. Even as their systems crumbled, they clung to old logic. Strike the military, they said. Disable their warships. But Earth's real weapon wasn't just its fleet, it was its people, all of them. Every mother, every doctor, every miner. No one was untrained now, no one was safe to ignore. Earth's new doctrine had a name: Total Resistance Protocol. If a single colony was attacked, the response came from everywhere, not from command, but from the people themselves. It was decentralized warfare. Velkar ships that landed on mining moons were met not with surrender, but with booby traps and tunnels. The civilians who knew how to jam energy rifles and pilot broken scout ships. One Velkar commander reported, They aren't civilians anymore. They're wolves in plain clothes. In the council chambers deep within Earth's bastion core, Ava Dorn stood before a digital map showing human-resistant cells. They blinked, not just across Earth, but across the entire known frontier. We are not hiding behind treaties anymore, she told her advisors. We are not soft targets. We are not your diplomats. We are the children of survivors. And this time, we finish what others started. Her eyes moved across the map. The galaxy will now learn the same lesson every tyrant in human history learned. When Earth bleeds, it doesn't beg, it remembers. And Earth was remembering everything. Now on Mars in a dusty crater camp, a grandmother taught her 6-year-old how to detect stealth drones by sound. On Europa's ice colonies, fishermen rewired harpoons into anti-armor railguns. In the Congo sky vault, artists had transformed laser cutters into orbital defense grids. The galaxy had once laughed at Earth's diversity, its chaos, its democracy. But now that same chaos had become Earth's strength. No single weakness. No predictable strategy. No central command to decapitate. Every citizen had become a link in a global swarm, moving as one, striking without warning. On the Velkar throne world, surveillance teams began intercepting messages from their own outposts, desperate warnings from commanders begging to retreat. The humans are everywhere, they whispered. Even the children kill without hesitation. Even their robots act like predators. They don't sleep. They don't pause. They want us to run. The Emperor listened quietly, his golden eyes wide. He had made one critical error, assuming humanity would collapse when pressed. But instead, Earth had done the opposite. It had transformed. It's not by choice, by necessity. Back on New Arizona, A young girl named Sierra Quinn stood at the edge of a rocky cliff. Her long coat blowing in the wind, the stars of Velkar's ruined fleet faintly visible in the sky. She held an old Earth flag, the corners singed from a past battle, and planted it into the dirt beside her sniper perch. She didn't wave it. She didn't salute. She just stood beside it, waiting, because she knew something the galaxy had only begun to understand. This wasn't a war for territory. This was a war of memory, of honor, of survival. And Earth didn't lose those ever. They called it the Golden Armada fleet of 500 warships carved from starlight and coated in layered metal that shimmered like molten gold. It was the pride of the Velkar Dominion, undefeated across 50 wars, feared across 200 star systems. It had crushed rebellions, vaporized moons, broken empires. No one had ever stood against it and survived. And now it was coming for Earth. The Velkar High Command, shaken by the collapse of their systems, believed they could still win through sheer force. Diplomacy had failed. The Ghost War was strangling their empire from within, so they turned to the old answer: fire and fear. The Golden Armada launched from Velkar space with all its flags raised, traveling in perfect diamond formations. With a singular order burned the humans into silence. But Earth wasn't silent because it was weak. Earth was silent because it was waiting. The Armada approached the outer edge of Earth's system. Led by the flagship Vanguard of Truth, a vessel the size of a small city. The commanders on board were confident, proud, even smiling. They'd seen the reports, Earth's stealth tricks, their civilian resistance, their hacking codes, but all that meant nothing against raw military might. Human strategy is clever, one Velkar admiral said. But in the end, the hammer always wins. The fleet reached Earth's moon in less than an hour, expecting resistance, alarms, counterattacks. They found none. The moon was dark. No defense signatures. No heat, no movement. Just a gray rock floating in space. That's when it started. One ship near the rear of the Armada suddenly spun out of control. Its engines died mid-flight. It didn't explode, it simply shut down, drifting like a corpse. The other ships adjusted formation, assuming a mechanical error. Then a second ship vanished from radar. Then a third. No explosions, no impact, just deleted like they'd never existed. Within minutes, 30 ships were gone. Panic spread across the Velkar fleet. They scanned for cloaked enemies, found none. They fired blind torpedoes, hit nothing. They sent out drones, but the drones turned against them mid-flight and exploded. On the Vanguard, a tech officer shouted, "This isn't sabotage, it's physics. The rules are changing." He was right. The ships were now inside Earth's prepared battlefield, a region of space called the Veil, designed secretly for one purpose: to trap and kill fleets without ever firing a shot. Hidden beneath the moon's surface, Earth had installed thousands of microsatellites, each equipped with gravitational distortion tech, stolen and modified from alien designs. Together, they formed a massive invisible net that twisted space, just slightly enough to scramble AI systems, warp sensors, confuse weapons, locks. The laws of nature had been bent, and the Golden Armada had walked right into it. Inside the distorted zone, time pulsed unevenly. Some ships saw the moon shift position. Others detected copies of their own fleet attacking from false angles. Murders. Sent between ships arrived 10 seconds late, enough to break formation, enough to make mistakes. And humans didn't make those mistakes, because they weren't fighting with ships in that zone. They were fighting with machines that thought like hunters, machines that moved in silence and fed off confusion. Human stealth vessels, smaller than a house, launched from the dark side of the moon, each one equipped with zero-emission drives and silent kill lasers. They didn't attack head-on. They crept beneath the hulls of the Golden Armada and sliced open weak points with surgical precision. One by one, Velkar ships began to fall, not in flames, but in silence. The Velkar commanders screamed orders. "Get us out of the Veil. Retreat now." But their engines flickered. Navigation was corrupted. Even the stars looked wrong. They were trapped in a space built to feel like madness. On Earth's side, Ambassador Thorne stood before the Warnet map. Dozens of red enemy signals blinked out every second. He didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He simply whispered, "They thought we'd fight fair." In space, the Armada broke apart. Some ships turned on each other. One cruiser fired blindly and hit its own wingmate. A battleship crashed into a satellite that didn't even register on its radar. In less than 20 minutes, half the Golden Armada was gone. The rest tried to flee, but the Veil was not just a trap, it was alive. Earth's AI war minds anticipated every escape route. Mines appeared where seconds ago there were none. Fake wormholes lured retreating ships into dead-end space. The Velkar flagships began to send emergency beacons across the galaxy. This is not a battle. This is a slaughter. At last, the vanguard of truth, once the pride of Velkar, sent its final transmission to anyone hearing this. Earth does not fight as other species fight. They do not speak when attacked. They do not shout. They prepare. They calculate. When they strike, you are already dead. Then the ship folded inward, caught in a gravity web, and was crushed like paper. From Earth, no announcement was made. No broadcast. No celebration. They simply logged the event. Golden Armada, neutralized. Time, 26 minutes. Human casualties, 0. The galaxy watched in silence. Empires that once mocked Earth now rechecked their defenses. Traitors rewrote their star. Maps to avoid human space. No one knew what to call this kind of war. It had no name, no battlefield, no honor. Only one truth. Earth had rewritten the rules, and the galaxy would never feel safe again. The golden walls of the Velkar throne chamber once shone like suns, proud symbols of conquest and divine rule. Now they were cracked.
Oh, not from battle, but
from fear, spreading like poison through every corridor. The Emperor sat motionless in his high seat, robe half slipped from one shoulder, hands clenched so tightly the veins bulged across his wrists. Before him, generals knelt in silence, eyes down, shoulders trembling. None dared speak first, because they knew. They all knew. The Golden Armada was gone, 500 warships obliterated, crushed without honor. Earth hadn't just destroyed their fleet, they had broken their spirit. And worst of all, they had done it without sending a message. No demands, no warning, not even a voice. Earth was not negotiating, not bluffing, not trying to be understood. They were doing something else and making an empire, piece by piece. The Emperor finally stood, staring at the vast stained glass map of the galaxy behind him. Velkar space used to stretch across a third of it. Now, entire sectors had gone dark, lost to cyber collapse, rebellion, or sheer fear. Border worlds had declared independence. Merchant guilds refused to ship supplies. Civilian unrest burned like wildfire. Why? Because Earth wasn't just killing soldiers anymore. They were destroying symbols, names, flags, songs, monuments, languages. Across a dozen systems, Earth's AI war ghosts had been quietly rewriting planetary data, changing what people remembered, erasing pride, planting doubt. On the shrine world of Velinara, sacred archives simply vanished overnight, replaced by one looping message in every dialect you should never have touched. Aurelianine. It wasn't just revenge. It was surgical justice. It was spreading aboard. A shattered Velkar scout ship near the ruins of the Golden Armada. One surviving officer captain, Hersek, managed to limp home in a damaged cruiser. Half his crew dead, his weapons offline. He stumbled into the royal war chamber, covered in blood, and said 5 words that made the entire command council flinch. Earth is not like us. He explained how human drones appeared from inside clouds, how the stars shifted without warning, how even his thoughts felt infected while drifting through Earth's war zone. They don't fight to win, he gasped. They fight to change you. They fight to make you doubt who you are. The High Council wanted to court-martial him for cowardice, but the Emperor did not. He waved them off. His face was pale, his voice thin. We thought Earth would fear death, he whispered. But Earth fears nothing, because Earth remembers. Every betrayal, and forgets none. Back on Earth, in the silent war chambers beneath the oceans, Director Ava Dorn received the decoded reports of internal Velkar collapse. The Empire had lost 20 systems in 4 days. Food lines were breaking. Religious leaders had fled to neutral space. AI sabotage had turned public news into psychological warfare, rerunning peaceful images of Aurelia 9 before it burned, reminding civilians again and again who started this. Ava stood before the War Council and said, "We no longer target their ships. We target their belief. Strike their schools. Rewrite their history. Let every Velkar child grow up ashamed of their name." Ambassador Thorne watched from the shadows, hands behind his back. He said nothing, because this was the path Earth never wanted but had always prepared for. He had seen the worst of humanity once. He had buried friends on planets that no longer existed. But what made Earth terrifying wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. Earth could be kind, generous, loving, but when pushed too far, when the innocent were murdered, when truth was mocked, when peace was spat, on Earth became something cold, something with memory, something with no mercy. And now the galaxy would face that version. On Neutral Station, Cardus 12. A Velkar senator tried to negotiate with a human merchant, offering apologies, begging for alliance, blaming rogue actors. For the Aurelia massacre, a human woman and old cargo pilot just stared at him. Then she showed him a photo. It was a child, burned and half covered in ash. "She was my niece," the pilot whispered. "They killed her because she was human." Then she walked away. The senator stood there, shaking, because he realized, too late, the war wasn't just with Earth's army. The war was with Earth's people. All of them. Even now, Earth wasn't sending fleets. They were sending warnings, silent ones. On one Velkar moon, the rivers turned black overnight, poisoned not with chemicals, but with data pulses that drove machines insane. On a luxury station, every advertisement was replaced with recordings of mothers screaming during the Aurelia attack. On the capital planet, statues of Velkar heroes wept, blood-hacked by Earth's art virus teams, meant only to unsettle the elite, and it worked. The Velkar nobles began fleeing the core systems, a quiet exodus. Their gold ships vanished. Into the edge of space, toward systems where Earth hadn't reached yet. But there was nowhere to run. Earth wasn't chasing them with fire. Earth was chasing them with memory. One line had begun to spread across pirate signals, merchant radios, and black market walls. No one knew who wrote it, but everyone repeated it. "You provoked the species that keeps every grudge." The throne world of Velkarus Prime had never known silence. For over 1,000 years, its golden towers had echoed with war chants, parades, royal declarations, and the constant hum of dominion. From the massive black sky gates to the eternal flame that burned in the Emperor's Hall, Velkarus was a planet that lived on pride. But on this day, the day Earth finally arrived, Velkarus heard something it had never heard before. Absolute, perfect, unnatural silence. No ships in orbit, no explosions, no marching boots. Just stillness. Then came the first tremor knot. Through the ground, but through the code. Every datapad, every screen, every command tower across the capital flickered, then went black. When they rebooted, they showed only a single phrase: "We are here, we are listening." The people of Velkarus froze. This wasn't a threat. It was worse. It meant Earth had already arrived. It meant they were already inside. Not a single shot had been fired. From the top of the Imperial spire, the Emperor watched the panic rise. Military leaders scrambled to find the source of the breach. Scouts launched, but the sky was clear. No ships, no fleets, no invasion. Where are they? Someone shouted, but the truth arrived seconds later when the eternal flame blinked out an event that had never happened in recorded Velkar history. The flame was powered by a quantum core buried deep beneath the throne palace, sealed behind 12 walls of armor, protected by the most advanced tech in the Dominion. And now it was gone. Without even a whisper, the message was clear. Earth had reached the very heart of Velkar power. and Velkar had no idea how. Inside the throne room, the Emperor rose from his seat and said, "Prepare the last stand." But the words felt small, weak, empty, because there was no army left to call. The Golden Armada was dust. Their colonies were breaking apart, their AI networks corrupted. The people were rioting in the streets, blaming the Emperor for everything. And worst of all, across the stars, millions of non-human species, those once conquered by Velkar, had begun rising. Earth hadn't just destroyed the Velkar Empire. Earth had freed its enemies, but Earth wasn't done. At the base of the Imperial Spire, the sound finally broke the silence of slow, steady marching rhythm, not of soldiers, but of machines. Dozens of tall, black humanoid figures walked through the palace gates without resistance. Each moved with perfect precision, no faces, no weapons drawn, just silence. They were Earth's newest invention, the Silence Walkers, built not for combat, but for psychological collapse. They hacked fear, rewrote memory, and deleted resistance from inside a person's thoughts, not by violence, but by making them doubt what was real. As the walkers moved through the palace, walls changed. Statues crumbled into dust. Ceiling lights flickered and died. The throne room's gold lining began to peel off the walls, not physically, but digitally, rewritten in the minds of those watching. Suddenly, nothing felt solid. Ministers screamed. One tried to shoot, but his weapon turned to ash in his hand. Another ran, only to find the hallway stretched forever like a dream. The Emperor stood frozen, watching it all happen, his crown heavy, his lungs tight. He whispered, "They are not here to kill us. They're here to erase us." At the edge of the spire, a screen flickered to life. It showed Ambassador Thorn standing calmly in Earth's bastion core. No weapons, no soldiers, just a face, a voice, and silence behind him. "You burned our children," he said. "You mocked our diplomacy. You smiled over treaties you never meant to honor. Now we're here not to fight you, but to bury you." He took a breath and added, "There will be no revenge. There will be no second chance. There will only be forgetting." A technician activated the Black Protocol, a human code, so advanced it didn't attack systems. It attacked memory. On Velkaris, people fell to their knees as history collapsed. Archives rewrote themselves in real time. Songs were rewritten. Birth records vanished. Star maps went blank. Schools forgot the Empire's name. Entire generations of information turned to static, and then nothing. On the throne, the Emperor fell. It's not from a weapon, but from knowing his empire no longer existed, not even in the minds of its own people, back on Earth. Director Ava Dorn watched the last transmission flicker off. She stood silently, then turned to her team. "Log it," she said. "Felkar Dominion disbanded. Time to collapse." 11 days, civilian deaths, minimal, Earth casualties, 0. Which didn't celebrate. No one did. Because Earth hadn't wanted this. They'd offered peace first. But the galaxy needed to understand. When Earth is pushed, Earth becomes something else. And that something brings silence. Not as mercy, as judgment. The stars were quiet again. But it was not peace. It was caution. It was the silence of a galaxy staring at Earth from across the void, not daring to blink. Velkar was gone, not just defeated, not surrendered, erased. No trace of their history remained. Their maps, their leaders, their victories vanished. Only dust where an empire once stood. Earth had not planted flags or claimed territory. They had left no soldiers behind, no trophies. Only the message, "We do not forget." That truth echoed across every channel, every language, every species. No announcement, no speech. But everyone understood humanity is not what you thought. It is not soft, it is not broken. And it does not forgive. On Earth, there were no victory parades, no fireworks, no cheering crowds. Just rebuilding, quiet. Rebuilding. Families returned to their homes. Farms turned back on. Children returned to their schools, though the lessons had changed. They still learned history, math, science. But they also learned memory combat, emotional discipline, and the art of strategic restraint. Because Earth's leaders knew this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a new identity. They would not become conquerors, but they would never again be targets. Every colony, every city, every person now lived under the same unshakable belief. Never again. In the shadowed chambers of Bastion Core, Director Ava Dorn watched an empty star map. All Velker systems were now labeled as unclaimed. A data officer whispered, "The Nornax Combine sent a message. They want a treaty urgent." Ava didn't answer. Another voice added, "The Kari are requesting human advisors.
They
Say they want to restructure their laws around Earth's values." A third said, "Sirens from the D-Theory sector sent a gift." An apology. Ava turned slowly. "We are not kings," she said. "We do not accept tribute. We do not write laws for others. We protect ourselves. That is all." And yet, the galaxy kept calling, because everyone remembered what they saw. The farmers who fought like elite soldiers, the children who outwitted AI, fleets, the cities that rewrote physics just to survive, the silence that fell over an entire empire in days. Everyone remembered what Earth had done. Everyone wondered what they might do next. Across trade stations, whispers rose like smoke. Don't provoke Earth. Never lie to them. They remember everything. In the ruins of a once mighty Velkar archive, a small boy wandered the dust. He wasn't Velkar, he was Kari, adopted after the fall. He found a cracked helmet, gold and scorched. Inside was a single word scratched into the metal. Human. He didn't know what it meant. His teacher said it was just a species. But his father had told him the truth. They're the ones who remember, the man had said. Not with anger, not with hate, but with focus. They remember until the world is balanced again. On Earth's moon, Ambassador Thorne stood at the edge of a quiet observation deck. He looked down at the blue world beneath him. Birds flew, oceans shimmered. Humans walked, laughed, lived again. He remembered the beginning, the first treaty that was broken, first lie told by Velker, the ash of Aurelia 9. He remembered every step, every tear, every life stolen. But he also remembered why they had fought, not for conquest, not for revenge, but because the galaxy needed to understand humanity had evolved. It wasn't just about firepower or fleets. It was about memory, the weapon no one saw coming, the patience to wait, the strength to endure. And when the time came, the ability to strike with a fury no empire could survive. Inside Bastion Core, one final message was recorded, not to be sent, but to be stored. A message for any species that would ever again consider Earth weak, soft, breakable. We do not start wars, but we end them. We do not destroy the innocent, but we defend our own without limits. We carry peace in one hand and memory in the other. We are Earth, and we remember everything. Somewhere far away, on the edge of a new galaxy, an alien listening station picked up a faint signal. Old, encoded, human. They tried to translate it. The computer stalled, then cracked. And then the message played. Simple and clean. This was your only warning. And the stars fell silent again.